Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Housing and Buildings. If you wish to submit testimony, you may at testimony@council.nyc.gov. At this time, please silence all electronic devices. Just a reminder, no one may approach the dais at any point during this hearing. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good morning. I'm Councilmember Pierina Sanchez, Chair of the Committee on Housing and Buildings, and I want to thank you all for joining today's hearing on the 2023 Housing and Vacancy Survey. I want to welcome Councilmember Alexa Vilas from the Housing Committee, and it's just the two of us. Yeah. Many of my colleagues are downstairs. In New York City, roughly 1 million renter households have been protected by rent regulation for decades, guaranteeing them a right to lease renewal, regulating their rental increases from lease to lease as voted on by a rent guidelines board, and protecting them from frivolous evictions. Established in 1969, rent regulation has become a feature of the New York City housing policy as a critical part of the response to the city's ongoing housing crises. The rental protections provided by rent regulations have been a key pillar of three that must move forward in order for the city to progress against the housing crisis. We must increase housing supply with tax expenditures, in my opinion, solving for the deepest need. We must strengthen tenant protections, and we must expand income supports to aid New Yorkers in affording their homes. We gather today because the laws establishing rent regulation in the city are subject to renewal every few years. In order to renew rent regulation, the City Council must evaluate the results of the Housing Vacancy Survey and pass a resolution finding that because there is still a housing shortage, defined in state statute as a vacancy rate below 5%, there is then a continuing need for rent regulation. The Council must also pass, and the Mayor must sign, a local law updating the expiration date for rent regulation. The rent laws are currently set to expire on April 1st, 2024. In order to determine whether there is a housing shortage, the city relies on the Housing Vacancy Survey, or HVS, conducted by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development and the U.S. Census Bureau every 3 years. The committee will hear from the Department of Housing Preservation and Development today on the findings of the 2023 HVS, which this year highlight a vacancy rate of 1.4%, which represents the lowest vacancy rate in 56 years. This low rate highlights that our city's intersecting crises of rising evictions, record homelessness, and housing unaffordability are only worsening. The vacancy rate is even more dire for those units with the lowest rents. Units renting for less than $1,100 per month had an availability of 0.39, and units renting for $1,100 to $1,649 had an availability rate of 0.91. The HVS also found a crippling reality for the lowest income New Yorkers. 86% of households earning less than $25,000 per year, the median worker in my district, was severely rent burdened. Now, more than ever, we must continue working to ensure that the city's housing shortage is addressed, paying special attention to our lowest income New Yorkers who have extremely limited housing options. Today, we will hear an overview of the HVS findings, and we will hear one bill and one resolution, both sponsored by me. One in relation to the continuation of rent stabilization laws of 1969, and the second, the resolution determining that a public emergency requiring rent control in the City of New York continues to exist and will continue to exist on or after April 1st, 2024. To better understand the survey results, I will also be asking the department to expound upon several findings, including trends in median tenant incomes increasing by $20,000 since the last HVS, and demographic data showing that a couple of things. New York City still has several 100,000 residents less than we did prior to the pandemic. We have more units online and a higher vacancy rate. So how does the department explain these numbers? I would like to thank my Chief of Staff and my entire team, Sam Cardenas, Kadeem Robinson, Gerard Fernandez, Adrian Magali Mendez, Maria Villalobos and Paola Olivo from my district team. I'd also like to thank the Housing and Buildings Committee staff, Taylor Zeleny, Austin Maloney. Welcome for planning your first hearing today. Jose Conde, Andrew Bourne, Dan Krupp, Reese Hirota, for their help in preparing for this hearing today. I would also like to thank my colleagues on the committee for joining. Now I will turn it over to the committee counsel to administer the oath.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. You can begin.
Good morning, Chair Sanchez and members of the Housing and Building Committee. I am Ahmed Tigani, First Deputy Commissioner for New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Gallmer, HPD's Chief Research Officer. I would like to thank the committee for welcoming us today to testify in support of Preconsidered Resolution T2024-1227 and Preconsidered Introduction T2024-1228, and to discuss the initial findings from the 2023 New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, shorthand New York City HVS. HPD submitted these findings to the Council on February 8th, 2024. For nearly 6 decades, the New York City HVS has been one of our most important tools for addressing the housing needs of the city, has provided critical data that informs our understanding of the city's housing stock, and has established the city's net vacancy rate, which the Council must consider when determining if New York City is in a state of housing emergency. Pursuant to state law, a housing emergency is determined based on the supply and condition of housing accommodations within a municipality and an identified need for regulating and controlling residential rents. The continuation of rent stabilization and rent control in the city depends on the determination by the Council, and a state of housing emergency still exists. Local law also requires that a survey be conducted to examine the supply of housing, the condition of housing, and the need for continuing regulation and control of residential rents and evictions. The New York City Housing Vacancy Survey is a representative survey of the city's housing stock that has been carried out about every 3 years since its first incarnation in 1962. It is the longest running housing survey in the country and is of critical importance for understanding how our city is changing and what we can and should do to support improvements in policy and programming. It is the most up-to-date and representative survey available. As you know, if the Council believes that the city is still in a state of housing emergency, it must pass the resolution and introduction being heard today between 30 and 60 days from receiving findings of the New York City Housing Vacancy Survey, and the mayor must sign the legislation before April 1, 2024 in order to extend rent control and rent stabilization. Before turning the microphone over to the Chief Research Officer, I want to emphasize my gratitude to Liz and the entire team that ran the survey over the past 2 years, to the hundreds of New Yorkers who worked as census field representatives, and to the thousands of New Yorkers who dedicated their time and shared their information. The people of the city of New York, and especially the million or so households who live in rent-controlled and rent-stabilized housing, are deeply indebted to their service.
Good morning. Thank you. I am Elizabeth Gallmer, Chief Research Officer at HPD. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before the Council today. My testimony here will present the main findings from the 2023 New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, selected initial findings, including key statistics on the supply of housing, its condition, and the continued need for the regulation of residential rents and evictions. Before I present those findings, I would like to take a brief moment to talk about the source of these data and the importance of the survey. All of the data presented today, as well as those in our report, come from the data collected as part of the New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey. The 2023 survey is the 19th time the City of New York has conducted the NYC HVS, which is completed about every 3 years going back to 1965 in partnership with the U.S. Census Bureau. It is the longest running housing survey in the country and is a unique source of timely and accurate data on various aspects of our city's housing and resident population that is relied on by policymakers working on topics as varied as poverty, immigration, health, and of course, housing, among others. The NYC HVS is a scientific survey distinct from much of the other data available to us. It represents every residential unit in the 5 boroughs. Our sample is randomly drawn from a complete list of all residential addresses in the city to ensure that our data are inclusive of every type of housing in every community. At the heart of our data are the interviews completed each cycle with thousands of New Yorkers. In 2023, we completed about 10,000 interviews. These interviews are conducted by trained census field representatives in multiple languages using a set of questions that are designed and tested to ensure that they collect data in an accurate and neutral way. Interview data are combined with other information from administrative records, including the state's homes and community renewal rent registration data, code enforcement data, tax information from the New York City Department of Finance, HPD's own production data, and others. Our census field team conducts in-person observations of every unit, and our data are weighted by survey statisticians at the Census Bureau to ensure that the NYC HVS represents all of the 3.7 million housing units and more than 8 million people who call New York City home. All of the units sampled for the 2021 survey were also part of the 2023 survey, enabling us to examine not only point-in-time changes between the 2 surveys, but also look at change within units and within households. The NYC HVS survey methodology follows the best practices used by academic and scientific studies across the country and enables us to report reliable and valid information to all of you and to the New Yorkers represented in our data. The 2023 NYC HVS was conducted from January through the middle of June in 2023. Although the NYC HVS is the most up-to-date representative information we currently have available, it is important to note that it reflects this point in time. The estimates we share today, as well as the information provided in the report, are based on that time period. With that, let's turn to the findings. The citywide net rental vacancy rate in 2023 was 1.41%. That's one of the lowest vacancy rates recorded since the NYC HVS began and stands in stark contrast to the 4.54% vacancy rate reported in 2021, which was one of the highest vacancy rates on record. There was very limited supply across all price ranges, but of those that were available, most would not be affordable to the typical New Yorker. The median asking rent for units available for rent in 2023 was $3,000. A family would have to earn at least $120,000 to afford that, yet the median income of New York City renters in 2023 was $70,000. We see a continued severe shortage of supply among lower cost rental units. The net rental vacancy rate was less than 1% for units renting for less than $1,650 in both 2021 and 2023. Where we have seen significant changes among higher cost units, where the net rental vacancy rate has dropped to historically low levels in 23. In 23, there were, apologies, to understand these changes, I'd like to walk through the components of our housing supply with a specific focus on how it changed by comparing point-in-time estimates between the 2 surveys. In 2023, there were 3.7 million housing units in New York City. This is the largest stock recorded since the NYC HVS began in 1965. It represents a net increase of 61,000 housing units, or about 2% relative to 2021, which is the sum of both losses and gains. This growth in the housing supply continues the trend seen over the last several NYC HVS cycles. But despite the increase in supply, it failed to keep pace with increased demand. Between 2021 and 2023, the total number of occupied units increased by 275,000, or 9% relative to just 2 years prior. This increase in households was seen for both renters and for owner-occupied units. This tight housing market meant that more units of every kind were occupied in 2023, including far fewer units available for rent and far fewer units that were off the market. Let's look at the changes in a different way. Here, we're looking at the units that were in both the 2021 and 2023 surveys to assess what happened to them over the last 2 years. 95% of the units that were occupied in 2021 were also occupied in 2023, though not always by the same household. 83% of the units that were available for rent in 2021, that's, as a reminder, those were almost all uniformly very high-cost units in 21. 83% of those were now occupied in 2023, and 62% of units that had been off the market in 21 were occupied when we went back and interviewed in 2023. The NYCHVS measured housing conditions through self-report of the current occupants regarding housing problems. In 2021, 14% of occupied units reported 3 or more of the 7 types of problems that we measure. The prevalence of housing problems increased again in 2023 to 15%, so a net increase of 1 percentage point. Both rent-stabilized and market rentals showed similar net changes in the rate of reported problems. Between 21 and 23, 8.2% fewer rent-stabilized units reported having no housing problems in our interview, while 7.6% fewer market rents reported no problems. The median rent in New York City was $16.41 in 2023. Citywide, rents increased by 9% in nominal terms since 2021, generally in line with our historically high inflation during that same period. Rent-stabilized units increased by 7% in nominal terms, with a median rent below citywide. The median rent for rent-stabilized units was $1,500 in 2023. In contrast, market rentals increased by 10% in nominal terms, with a median rent of $2,000. When we examine the distribution of household incomes, we see a stark shift upward. Between 21 and 23, the median household income in New York City increased to $80,000 from just above $60,000 in 21. During this period, there was a large net increase in the number of households earning $100,000 or more, up by almost 500,000 households, and a net loss of the lowest income households. Using the subset of NYCHVS data that were in both the 21 and 23 surveys, we examined the incomes of renters across different groups. The first group in this chart shows renters who stayed in the same home and were interviewed in both surveys. The second group shows renters who moved out after the 2021 survey, out of their homes to somewhere else. The third group then is the renters who moved into those same units that the second group vacated. And the last group on the right here shows the renters who moved into a unit that had been vacant in 2021. We found across all these groups that higher income renters moved in where lower income renters moved out, and then a full half of the households that moved into units that had been vacant in 21 earned $100,000 or more. Within that group, the median income was $192,000. We separately looked at those who moved to the city since 2021 to understand the composition of the newest New Yorkers. The vast majority of these, over 95%, were renters. 53% earned $100,000 or more. Overall, their median income was $105,000. And among those earning $100,000 or more, the newest New Yorkers' median income was $200,000. The newest New Yorkers were more likely to live alone, 44% compared to 37%, and to be headed by someone who was white, 52% compared to 32% of renters citywide. When we look at, for the first time in many cycles of the NYCHVS, the share of renters who were rent burdened or paying more than a third of income toward rent went down from 53% in 21 to 43% in 23. This was driven by the larger number of high income households and not by the increasing affordability of the rental stock. When we look at rent burden by income, we see stark differences for low-income New Yorkers compared to those earning more. 86% of the lowest income renters who did not benefit from rental assistance were severely rent burdened or paying more than half of their income toward rent. An additional 4% were moderately rent burdened or paying between 30 and 50%. This remains unchanged since 2021. In contrast, 91% of renters with household incomes of $100,000 or more were in housing that was affordable to them. That is, they paid less than a third of their income for housing. Beginning in 2021, the NYC HVS also collected information about renters who were unable to make rental payments on time. In 2023, 13% of renter households reported being late or missing a rent payment at least once in the prior year. That was unchanged since 2021. We also collected follow-up information on whether any of these 13% of renters were still behind on rent at the time of the NYC HVS survey. 34% reported still being in arrears, up from 29% in 2021. In summary, the 2023 NYC HVS showed stark changes in the 2 years since our last survey. The citywide net rental vacancy rate was historically low at 1.41%. There was very limited supply across all price ranges, but of those that were available, most would not be affordable to the typical New Yorker. While the overall supply continued to increase, it was insufficient to keep pace with the large net increase in the number of households. The prevalence of housing problems increased across all types of housing, back to levels similar to what we had found in the 2011 survey. Citywide, rents increased at a pace similar to our historically high inflation during this period, up 9% in nominal terms. Low-income New Yorkers continued to experience high levels of rent burden, and many were unable to make rent payments. Perhaps the most dramatic shift was in household incomes. Between 21 and 23, there was almost 500,000 more households earning $100,000 or more, with a net loss of the lowest income New Yorkers. More than half of the households who moved to New York City between 21 and 23 earned $100,000 or more, as were the renters who moved into units that had been vacant in 2021. New York City continues to see diverging experience where low and middle income New Yorkers face limited housing choice, while more New Yorkers with more purchasing power continue to grow in numbers. I'll turn it back now over to the first Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. It's hard to feel this sad after a presentation just full of numbers, but I actually feel emotional after hearing you, Dr. Gomer, and spell out the numbers in this way. In particular, validating what the experience is on the ground, right? About how tough the lowest income New Yorkers really do have it, especially those that are not receiving any rental assistance help. So I'm gonna start with a few questions, and then I wanna turn it over to colleagues just to be respectful of their time, and then circle back. But starting very broadly, for the agency, what does a vacancy rate of 1.4% mean, and in particular, a 1.4 vacancy rate that is comprised of the breakdown that you just shared?
If I can first start with that answer, and I also want to highlight a couple of other things that I think gets to the question that you asked. As Dr. Gomer's testimony highlighted, from the findings in the 2023 HVS, something's very clear. As the city has emerged from the COVID-19 pandemic, our housing crisis has worsened over the last 2 years, and New Yorkers are feeling this on multiple fronts, as you had indicated in your response. Too many New Yorkers are experiencing rising costs and are worried about being able to pay the rent, and many others are unable to move to a new home because of the dearth of low-cost apartments on the market. While the housing shortage is felt by all households, low-income households feel this the most deeply. They face the lowest vacancy rates amongst homes they can't afford and experience the highest levels of rent burden. So this brings us to the important role of rent stabilization housing in our city. A strong rent stabilization system, coupled with our unparalleled investments in affordable housing, has helped ensure that we have as much low-cost housing as we do, and has helped many New Yorkers remain in their homes and exercise the choice to stay in their neighborhoods. Rent stabilization supports our work in affordable housing. The housing we finance is rent stabilized in exchange for our public investment and provides an extra layer of protection for those renters. HPD is focused on advancing our pipeline of deeply affordable housing projects, preserving our remaining stock of low-cost and affordable housing, and supporting critical efforts to build more housing citywide. However, we do need more to address the need, and it requires action and partnership at both the local and state levels to address the issues and the findings that you see in this survey. So with this year's state legislative session in full swing, we urgently need action from our partners in Albany to enact a housing agenda to allow us to build and preserve more housing efficiently, effectively, and equitably. At the local level, we need to work hand in hand to maximize all avenues for housing development, including but not limited to affordable housing development. And we need the support of the City Council to continue to advocate for and champion new housing across every borough and every neighborhood in our city. We are thankful for Speaker Adams' leadership and this council's support in passing the Fair Housing Framework Law, which is a consequential step towards ensuring every neighborhood contributes to building more housing, including low-cost and affordable housing in our city. In passing the City of Yes Housing Opportunity, the City Council can take a monumental next step to unlock housing opportunities citywide and helping us fulfill the spirit of the Fair Housing Framework Law. At the same time, we must continue to invest in and preserve our limited stock of low-cost housing to preserve further exacerbating the existing housing crisis. So in focusing on the findings and focusing on the legislation that we're here to discuss, the net rental vacancy rate is less than 5%, a precondition to a finding of housing vacancy. That is what the survey has shown us. We have provided information about the supply, condition, and continued need within our housing stock. We shared data indicating that many of our neighbors, especially low-income New Yorkers, are struggling to remain stably housed in our city. We look to the council to determine whether we remain in a state of housing emergency and in turn the future of our rent-stabilized and rent-controlled housing stock. And I'll turn over to Dr. Gomer to go further.
Thank you. I think of all of the findings from the 23 survey, the net rental vacancy rate is very telling of how dramatic some of the changes are that we've seen in a relatively very short period of time over this 2-year period relative to our 21 survey. The net rental vacancy rate of 1.41% is certainly dramatically lower than it had been just 2 years prior. But I think it's also important to note where there has been consistent findings across both of those surveys, and that is a dramatically low shortage, or a very large shortage of the lowest cost units. All of those with rents below the median of $1,650 continue to have a net rental vacancy rate of less than 1%, the same as in our 21 survey.
Thank you, Dr. Gomer. Thank you, First Deputy. So, turning to questions about the survey, as First Deputy mentioned, it is a precondition that this council finds that the vacancy rate is less than 5%. So just going to ask several questions about the survey itself, survey methodology. Can you tell us about the collaboration between the Census Bureau and the agency? How is the data collected? How is a representative sample across housing types ensured?
Sure. I covered some of that in my testimony today, but I'm happy to go through that. It's an incredibly important part of what this survey does. It's incredibly important that we provide the most accurate and reliable information, so I'm always happy to answer questions about our approach and our methods. The NYC HVS follows best practices in representative surveys. We start by drawing a sample, statistical sample of units from the entire residential address list in New York City, so as our frame. That's a first incredibly important step here to make sure that we're not only selecting and interviewing a certain type of unit or a subset of units that are easier or more convenient to interview, right? It's important that every single housing unit has a chance of being sampled. And then our census team, which comprises several hundred people, works those cases. They recruit households. If it's an occupied unit, they seek to interview the most knowledgeable person who lives there, collecting a whole range of information about their unit, their building, themselves, and anyone else who lives with them. If our census team finds that the unit is not occupied, then they complete a separate interview that asks questions that are specific for what we are looking to understand there. And that can be completed either with an owner or managing agent, sometimes a combination of people, in order to get the most accurate and complete information. Those interviews really are, as I testified today, the heart of our survey. We feel it is incredibly important to speak to New Yorkers about what is happening in New York City. But that said, we also then leverage additional information that we match to our sample. The Census Bureau has been great partners in helping us to do that. So we include all kinds of other secondary information, including all of HCR's rent registration data, not just as of the moment, but in fact going back at least a couple of decades. We match to other information with tax records, HPD production. We've recently partnered with the OCA to be able to match eviction records. So this gives us additional rich information that's just not feasible to collect in an interview setting. But again, all of that is matched to this representative sample that makes sure that we have coverage of all of those types. And of course, then our data are weighted to account for who we actually were able to reach based on the inverse probability of selection, and follows, again, all of those best practices for appropriate survey methodology.
Thank you so much. I'd like to acknowledge we've been joined by Councilmember Ressler and Councilmember Felice. And I'm going to ask one more question before I turn it over to Councilmember Aviles, followed by Ressler. So regarding one of the findings that I find to be the most striking, it is this jump in high-income households and complementary, maybe, replacement. There's been replacement of high-income households, of low-income households by high-income households. So a policy question. For renters whose income is less than $25,000 and who do not have subsidized housing, you mentioned that 86% are severely rent burdened, but the full 90% are rent burdened. What is HPD doing to address this affordability issue? And in particular, I know the council and the administration are at odds about FEPS voucher expansion, but the mayor and the state of the city announced an expansion of Section 8 housing vouchers to address the crisis. Can you tell us what the status of that is? And can you tell us about any federal advocacy that the agency is doing, particularly as Washington, D.C., as Congress debates LIHTC reforms?
Absolutely, and thank you for the question, Chair. So first and foremost, I will reiterate that the most critical and largest and abundant supply of affordable housing is our rent-regulated stock, and making sure that's protected, making sure that we are investing in buildings that have that rent-regulated stock is a major priority for the administration. Our preservation work and the dozen or so different term sheets that we have targeted to different types of rent-stabilized and rent-regulated apartments ensures that we are helping maintain that, in addition to making sure that owners are following the rules and regulations attached to rent regulation overall. Separately, we obviously need more housing to meet the need in this city. HPD is committed to doing its part to build housing that targets and helps our most vulnerable New Yorkers. You can tell just by our calendar 23 figures in new construction alone that 41% of our subsidized new construction went to helping extra low-income families up to 30% AMI. 58% of our subsidized new construction went up to families up to 50% AMI, a household of 3 making $63,000. And 88% of that new construction amount helped families up to 80% AMI. In addition, we layer vouchers to help continue to reach the deepest and most in need of support, so rental assistance supplementing that work, in addition to ensuring that those buildings have a financing framework that works in the long term by including multiple income tiers, because not only are we here to help one side, but we also see that there's a need for moderate and middle income families too. The other thing that we need to see is housing production throughout the industry. So subsidized housing is one part, but we need to be able to have both as of right and subsidized housing. We need the state to help us with an as of right tax benefit. We need to see our ability to have more flexible residential floor area permission at the local level so we can build more in areas that have assets and a zoning framework that allows us to do more. We need to allow and have more permissible development in every neighborhood through City of Yes, so that every neighborhood is part of the housing solution. And yes, part of our funding for affordable housing comes from city tax levy. This administration has put in $23 billion over a 10-year plan, the most that we've seen in capital investment in affordable housing. But more so than that, we depend on low-income tax credits from the federal government to make sure that our housing, especially housing for our most vulnerable population, is met. So we are advocating right now. There's a bill in Congress that would help us tremendously, and we would seek any support from the council to see Congress pass that bill so we can get more flexible low-income tax credits to support that work. So again, subsidized housing is critical. We continue to use this data and other data to target it toward our most vulnerable families. We're using HPD Section 8 vouchers to make sure that our housing continues to reach deep for the most vulnerable families, but we also need support across the board for as of right and subsidized housing through more flexible regulatory and zoning frameworks.
Thank you. And my understanding is that HR 7024, the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act, which is considering LIHTC reform, does not include any changes that would allow the City of New York to provide lower income housing than we do. So I will support, and I'll ask my colleagues to join, but we need to do more. You mentioned the AMI levels, the low income levels at which HPD has been targeting production. What AMI level does a $25,000 per year income correspond to? So,
as I mentioned, our subsidized housing for our extra low-income households and our very low-income households, so that's around 30% AMI and lower. So you can see in our calendar year, 2023. Numbers that we were subsidizing down from 30% AMI, 41% of our new construction for 30% AMI and lower. Additionally, and again in partnership with the council, legislation was passed to make sure that we had pathways for homeless New Yorkers as well. So at least 15% of our term sheets are set aside for homeless New Yorkers. In addition, we have developer partners who may volunteer more. And sometimes we have between 15 and 30% of our projects have a flex to be able to do that. So we work closely with those developers and DSS to make sure that we have opportunities in our pipeline to continue to push to help our most vulnerable New Yorkers. And beyond that, through a combination of financing and rental assistance, we are able to do even more.
Going to attempt to answer my own question. Appreciate that reiteration. But an income of $25,000 a year for a household corresponds to much less than 30% of AMI. And we're talking about 90% of households that earn less than 25%. Those are the ones that are suffering the most. And our policies, our term sheets are producing at the lowest AMI that is covered is 30%, right? Complete mismatch. The only way that we get to those folks is vouchers, right? So what is the administration's update on the Section 8 voucher expansion?
So I would say that the Section 8 voucher expansion, that particular program, is being overseen by NYCHA. HPD vouchers continue to be available to support lower income tenants in our development supply. We also have tenant referrals that go through special purpose vouchers, like for individuals with disabilities, or we have vouchers that again are focused on homeless and at-risk homeless households. Just recently, we were able to put 7,800 vouchers collectively between NYCHA and HPD into our communities through the Emergency Housing Voucher Program. So I would defer to NYCHA on the question of the Section 8 rollout, but they have been fully focused on making sure that's a successful program moving forward. And for HPD, we continue to advocate for more vouchers at the federal level, but we are almost at 100% utilization to make sure that we are not wasting any vouchers and they are in the hands of people who need them so they can get housing in New York City.
Thank you. I'm now going to turn it over to Councilmember Aviles.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all. I ditto the sentiments of the Chair around how depressing this story is, and certainly it matches what we see in our district offices all the time, increasingly where our most vulnerable New Yorkers have no options. We're in a critical state. I'd like to just make sure I understand, following the previous line of questioning around the term sheets and the lowest income New Yorkers, particularly the $25,000 income band, which is what I see a lot in my district, particularly seniors, with no options for them. Did you just say that 30% is what you're requiring in the term sheets for this income band?
No, so our term sheets and each of our new construction term sheets have specific parameters, but for instance, for seniors in particular, we have a senior housing new construction term sheet called the SARA program. And in that program, we actually do 100% project-based voucher, which allows us to have a lot of flexibility to reach the most vulnerable seniors. And those vouchers go and allow us to not only use the project-based vouchers for applicants through Housing Connect, who have very tight and low incomes, but we also have a set-aside for homeless seniors, so we're able to make a pathway as well. Our ELA term sheet, which is for extra low and low income households, has specific parameters that again focuses on low and extra low families. It does have the opportunity to service moderate and middle income families. We are very focused on making sure that we are hitting all the income bands we need, since we see housing need at that level as well for working families in New York. So our term sheets each have specific parameters, all of which are really focused at trying to get to extra low and low income households.
Do you think those, will there be an opportunity to increase the thresholds for those parameters? Because what we're seeing is, while they exist in the projects, we are barely scratching at the need, and the survey absolutely shows that, that the problem is increasing. So is the administration looking at increasing the percentage targets for this particularly vulnerable population?
I think there are three pieces I just want to touch on. So one, in reference to the tool to be used the most for extra low and low income households, which are low income tax credits from the federal government. Even the change that could be made at Congress right now would actually allow us to create another 4,400 units using a resource that would target the lowest income households. Separately, more vouchers from the federal government will allow us to be able to do more project-based and more tenant-based referrals. So those are two resources that we think of and try to use alongside the capital. We are also looking at the constraints of developing housing right now. We've talked to the council about this before, a mixture of insurance rates, interest rates, legal and soft cost, hard costs in construction, supply, and labor have contributed to higher costs in construction. Right now, we are working closely with development partners to think about how our term sheets can be better geared to creating efficient, successful projects. And in that, we are having serious discussions about how we can use this data to talk about where we are targeting. So it is absolutely front of mind for us, and we are toggling a number of different things, plus looking at how these mixture of resources can help. But I would say that part of it also is reducing some of the regulatory and zoning burdens that add to costs in producing housing, which is why we have the legislative agenda that we've talked about before, both at the local level with City of Yes and in the state agenda. And of course, having an as-of-right tax benefit will allow us to use a variety of different tools, not only subsidized housing, but also as-of-right housing that produces affordable housing in our city to get to that same goal.
I appreciate the very robust answer. It sounds like you're thinking about it.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah, slippery slope. Just one quick question. I want to thank you also for mentioning how important rent stabilization is and how critical it is for our city. I'd love to know what the administration is doing to make sure we protect rent stabilization, and I will just say it. Will the administration put tenants on the rent guidelines board in order to make sure that there is a balanced perspective on that board? That would be the surest way, one of the surest ways to begin to bring a real balanced perspective around the importance of tenants. But what else is the administration doing to make sure we're protecting these valuable units?
I appreciate the question, Council Member. From HPD's perspective, our first step is always ensuring that the laws are being enforced and that making sure that the tenants who are seeing issues are protected. So we have invested heavily in rebuilding our inspector corps and making sure that we have a strong enforcement apparatus under Deputy Commissioner Santiago. So we continue to make sure that we are pushing and responding to tenant complaints. We are using our anti-harassment unit and our neighborhood investment services in enforcement, using our programs wisely, like our alternative enforcement program. When needed, we will bring litigation in court if there are laws being violated. We work closely with our partners at HCR to make sure that there are referral and information is going back up and down so that we're working together. Separately, we are making sure that we use our relationships with tenant advocates and legal aid and talking to each other to make sure that we are protecting the tenants who are in housing court. We are making sure that there's information that's available to tenants as needed. Recently, the mayor announced the formation of the Tenant Protection Cabinet. We continue to have our public engagement unit and our tenant support unit in our neighborhoods, knocking on doors, manning our tenant question hotline so that if tenants have questions or need referrals, they can reach out. Both our home-based programs run by HRA and our housing ambassadors through the HPD Housing Ambassador Program serve as CBO resources in the community, not only for questions about how to get help, as they are the leaders and voices who understand how their communities need this assistance. So they are providing questions to their communities, and we are getting feedback from these CBOs about how we can help further. And we continue to build out pilots and programs that have been successful in the past. So in the past, we had the Partners in Preservation program. It was a successful pilot in 3 neighborhoods that now has been baseline in the budget. We will be working in more neighborhoods. It's a partnership between tenants, legal aid, community-based legal aid organizations and tenant-based organizations to work with enforcement and our preservation program so that we're targeting resources on the enforcement side or finding buildings that need preservation assistance through that partnership. So those are just a few of the ways that we're doing it, but at the end of the day, rent regulation is critical to all parts, and we're finding different ways to defend that and protect it.
If I may, I just add one thing. These are obviously really critical direct program and support mechanisms, but I think it's also very important to recognize that the information that we gather and share, not only for today's hearing, but much more broadly, we also are showing a commitment to putting clear, accurate, and representative information that speaks to what is happening for rent-stabilized tenants in rent-stabilized units over time, and that all of that is also made as a public asset to be able to help make measured decisions that hopefully are effective for whatever is needed to make our city continue.
Thank you. Dr. Gummer, I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Ressler, but I just wanted to ask a clarifying note. On your slides 7 and 8, you show that the number of vacant and available apartments for rent have declined by nearly 70,000, and vacant not available is down by 123,200. So it seems like the survey is showing us that we have more units in the city of New York, 60,000 more. We have more units online and fewer unavailable. Am I understanding that correctly? Can you expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. When we had this, when we as a city experienced this dramatic net increase in occupied units, that not only are households that are going into new supply, but they also have to go into other housing units. And what we saw very clearly was that they moved into units that had been available for rent. Those are now dramatically occupied, and that many of those units that had been off the market in 21 also are now occupied. I mean, we just see occupancy rates exceptionally high across the board in every type of housing, including those that were off market and vacant last time.
Thank you. And can HPD share anything about the geography of where the newest New Yorkers, those that are earning, you mentioned above $200,000 per year, where they are moving to?
Sure. So this obviously is our initial findings report. As you've experienced in the past, we continue to cut the data in various ways over the coming weeks and months. That includes looking at greater geographic granularity than what we've presented in the report. This selected initial findings really focuses on our citywide conditions and the need for any rent stabilization and rent control, but we're happy to share some more additional geographic as well as other data and analysis as we get to it in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you. I suspect I have a list for you of those
We
kind
welcome
of
that.
cuts. Councilmember Ressler?
Great. I firstly just want to say, Dr. Gummer, I'm so sorry that you have to sit next to Ahmed for the entire length of this hearing. We all empathize with you.
Thank you for the comment, council member.
Yeah, you're welcome. I do want to follow up on the question, one of the items the chair was just mentioning, Dr. Gummer. So it's 123,200 fewer units that are not available than 2 years ago. Is that right?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
could you just help us, what's the denominator? Like, what's the total number of units that are not available? If it's 123,000 fewer than it
sure.
was 2 years ago, how many are not available altogether?
Absolutely. For those of you who have your selected initial finding report,
Forgive me
in
if
front
I
of you,
missed it.
I can direct you to that page. So it's page 29 is where we enumerate this, and we have additional data. If it's helpful, we can also bring up a couple of appendix slides to talk about that. So in 2023, the total citywide number of units that were not available for rent was 230,000.
230,000. So that's a
And
big
that's
number.
just so that we know that net
Yeah.
change, that's down from 353,000.
So it's down a third in 2 years. That's a good thing. If my math is working close enough. Jake is nodding, so I got it good. So we're down about a third. That's a good thing. But still, 230,000 units offline is a lot of units. I found it notable that only 62%, so I guess that's the same thing. That's the same data point another way, that 62% of the 2021 offline units are now occupied.
It's
Or I
a
guess that's
slightly
in
different
reverse.
measure. Those are
Okay.
complementary ways of thinking about that topic, that general topic. So let me maybe help clarify for others who maybe are not good at doing the math in their heads. So we look at change in two different ways, and I've presented both of those here in my testimony, and we cover that in our report. One way is we look at what I'm referring to as net change between these two surveys, right? So we have an estimate in 21, 353,000 units. We have an estimate in 2023, 230,000 units. We can look at what that change is. Importantly, the net change includes things that have both gone up and gone down. So units that had been vacant and not available, or vacant or occupied, right? So some of those will change and leave that group over those 2 years. Others will enter it, and when we say the net change, we're just looking at the difference between those 2 points in time. So that's one way of looking at this. The second way that we are able to do with our survey is to look at what happens to specific units that we're studying and following over time. And so that's a different way of looking at change. And when we do that and shared that today, what we were doing was saying all of our 21, what we saw in 21 and reported to you, what has happened to those specific units. So they're both looking, and they both point in the same direction, which is that there is just dramatically higher rates of occupancy of every kind, of every type, in every place. That is obviously what's leading to a very, very low vacancy rate.
Right. I'm just interested in what tools we have to get these 230,000 units that are offline activated, because that's an enormous amount of housing that is unavailable. I get it's a low vacancy rate. I get that we're moving in the right direction and that there's progress to show over these 2 years. But other than, as my colleague and I were just discussing, kind of ever-heightening hyper-gentrification across the city of New York that is tightening the housing market and making it more and more impossible for anybody to find an affordable place to live, are there any, and that incentivizing landlords to see their units activated, is there anything else we can do, and are there specific deliberate policies that we're pursuing to try to activate these units, which I imagine is a lot cheaper than preservation deals or new construction if we can do the work that's necessary to get this housing online?
So I will obviously defer to our first deputy commissioner on some of that thinking, but just so that I can clarify for others that within that overall universe of units that are off the market, there are a variety of different reasons that happens, right? And just for clarity, I want to make it clear that many of those reasons are not something that we would solve for as an intervention, right? Things where a lease has been signed but someone hasn't moved in.
Sure.
Or a unit has been sold, it's in contract, a mortgage hasn't come through, it hasn't been closed on, right? Where the occupant can take up residence.
Do you break that information down to have a sense of what's really offline versus what's in the process of being activated?
We do enumerate all of those different reasons, and that's in our report. We're happy to give you those numbers if you're interested in them to read into the record. But we do itemize, I think this year it's 16 different reasons, same as we did in 21. And many of those reasons, and obviously each of these groups grows and ebbs, right, from one cycle to the next. But just so that we're clear that 230,000 is not something that necessarily needs an intervention.
Right.
That's a very diverse group of housing units across a whole variety of reasons that they don't happen to be for rent or they're not yet occupied.
And I think the first deputy commissioner is about to jump in as well, but I just want to tack on one more question for him to respond to in addition, if the chair would be so gracious. When rent regulation laws were passed in Albany a few years ago, everybody said, the landlord community said that the sky was falling and that we'd have vacant apartments in perpetuity and that we would not see improvements to people's homes in our rent-regulated housing stock. It certainly seems to me from the top lines of this survey that we have a very different story to tell in New York City. And I just wonder if you could, in any further elaboration you were going to offer on what Dr. Gaumer was just sharing, also comment on that and how you see that trend. And then last thing, because why not? I don't think I saw it in your testimony. If you do, and I don't know if there are any lawyers up here, but just interested if you do have any analysis you'd like to share on the Supreme Court's decision not to take up the case around rent-regulated housing and how much more confident we can be in the protection or this long-term stability of the rent-regulated system in New York. Sorry for those, a lot.
Sure. I'm going to try to, and please tell me if I miss any point that you need me to make, but to the original question, again, I'll stress, we have about 12 different preservation term sheets that range from various levels of intensity. And a lot of what puts an owner in a position about whether or not they should work with us is based on what requirements and regulations they have to face. There are a number of mandates that have been passed over the last couple of years, whether it has to do with gas piping or facades or changes in facade rules, Local Law 97. We have gone ahead and either designed programs. We have sought both local money. We're using federal money around electrification and decarbonization, so that the incentive is beyond just getting a unit online. There is further incentive in the fact that they have to be in compliance with these rules and regs. The city has then made it its priority to make sure that we have money, resources, and tools to put them in a pipeline to do that. And we are looking at the way we move through that pipeline, since we understand that there are owners of different backgrounds and familiarity. So we do have preservation tools that we think are very competitive. They speak to the moment of the time. They use a number of different resources, and we hope that will continue to bring people in. And as a bedrock of that work, we use rent stabilization and rent stabilization framework to make sure that the people in those buildings that we finance are protected. I also would say that to the point about rent regulation, all I can say to the results of the Supreme Court decision is that we feel that the law and the framework is something that's sound and critical to preserving the most abundant, affordable housing source that we have. It's something that we use our resources to defend, to protect on behalf of tenants, and we believe that tenant protections is a critical piece to any housing plan that we work on moving forward. I think the only other, I'll let Dr. Gomer speak to the data behind these pieces. But again, we think that we
And your thoughts on rent regulation? I mean, the narrative that landlords tried to put out after rent regulation was passed, it seems like this report tells a very different story around occupancy and home improvements. Could you just speak to that?
The only thing I would say is that one very important piece is that we know that the building portfolios in general saw tremendous pressure during COVID, continue to see pressure as a result of meeting the needs that they have in front of them now over the last couple of years, making sure that they're up to standards and the right code regulations. I think working with the council to see J51 move forward will be a huge help to meeting those needs and making sure that we are where the city can help, we can do that work. But there have been pressures. I'll let Dr. Gomer talk to how the data speaks to exactly that data point.
Sure. So I think your question actually was phrased exactly right, that what we see in our data and measuring this consistently between these two cycles is that as across the board, we saw more households occupying more units of every type. That was also true for rent-stabilized units that we had seen be off the market for various reasons in 21. That, as a reminder, had been about 42,000 units, and now that's down to about 26,000 units. So that's a very also stark drop, right? It's following the same pattern that we've seen across the board. The other thing, following up on our conversations that we had with you, I think earlier in the spring on these particular issues, we did obviously go back and measure again how many of those units were low cost and in need of repairs and had been empty for 12 months or longer, right? Those being just one way of measuring this argument that rent stabilization, puts many units in a position where they're not financially feasible to rent. For the and as a reminder, in the 21 survey, we did not see many of those units. We saw just about 2,700 rent stabilized units that had been off the market for a year or more, in need of repairs, with a legal rent of less than $1,000, right? That's what we had discussed from the 21 survey. Now, in 23, we measure that again. We, in fact, have so few of those units that we couldn't use the $1,000, under $1,000 as rent. We couldn't measure that in any reliable way. So this year we measured how many rent-stabilized units are off the market for a year or more, in need of repairs, with a legal rent of less than $1,500, which is the median rent for those units. and it was 1,700. So even though we're looking at a slightly larger tranche, we're seeing a lower number. So again, every one of these measures, in rent stabilization as well as elsewhere, we're just seeing that there are more households in more units and very, 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 very dramatic drop-offs of all types of vacant.
In an altogether depressing report, I'm happy to hear that strengthening rent and regulation protections did not allow the sky to fall.
That, again, these are housing conditions, and the city has tools to help owners with those housing conditions.
Thank you, Councilmember Ressler. I'd like to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilmember Dinowitz. So I first want to just clarify or follow up on Councilmember Ressler's first question on units, again, slide 8, units that were not available in 2021 that are available in 2023, 62%. How does that 62% compare to previous comparisons between HVSs, if you have that information?
That's a great question. I don't have those historical data with me or off the top of my head, but I'm happy to follow up and give you back in time what that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
The one thing that I may add while we're just on that topic and in combination with Councilmember Ressler's question, we did look at the subset of rent-stabilized units and what had happened to those specific 42,000 units between 21 and 23. So as a reminder, as you just said, across all units that were off the market, 62% were occupied 2 years later. For rent stabilized, it was 75% were occupied 2 years later. Right, so again, using those two complementary ways of looking at change.
Thank you, that's really helpful. And this is with the broader definition, or this is just the rent stabilized?
The 75% is the totality of all of the units that were rent stabilized and off the market in 21. So that's at all price levels,
Okay.
right, in all types of buildings, in all neighborhoods, that's 75%.
Yeah. Are there any observable trends that you can share at this time between rent stabilized units that are rent stabilized built before 1974 and post 1974?
So we've only, again, started to sort of do the next layer of analysis in this. We haven't done a tremendous amount of work in pre-1974 versus post-74. What I can give is some context, and then always open to whatever analytic questions, if particular, you're interested in. So for those of you that are not so fluent in rent stabilization, as a reminder, rent stabilization covers about 1 million units in New York City. This is separate from rent control, which is a very different, older form of rent regulation. And 1974 is a very important date in rent stabilization, right? The 1 million units are a very diverse group. They cover a lot of different cohorts of buildings that were built under different programs. They're subject to rent stabilization for various reasons, right, et cetera. It's a very, very diverse group of that 1 million units. 1974 is important because that sort of is often used as a proxy for original rent stabilized units that were statutorily part of rent stabilization under the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974. There's our date, 74. And that is still a very, very large share of that 1 million units. It's about 780,000 of the 1 million or so rent-stabilized units are built before 1974. But the one thing that I will say to that is that, and that means that about 180, 190,000 were built after 74. Because of the nature and sort of the layered rent stabilization statutes, it's important to note that we have units that are subject to rent stabilizations by virtue of being older buildings, 6 or more units. But the other way that units opt in or become subject to rent stabilization primarily is through either tax benefit programs or participation in affordable housing program, right, where our regulatory agreements require them to be rent stabilized. So when we talk about 1974, those older buildings, just a reminder that many of those are also part of an affordable housing program, right? Our preservation work is almost exclusively in older rent-stabilized buildings that sort of overlap with that. And also tax benefit programs, particularly J51, right? Which we know is in discussion right now. But J51 also would obligate rent stabilization in exchange for receiving those benefits, and that tax benefit program also almost exclusively served older rent stabilized buildings. So just a reminder that 74 is an important marker in many ways, but is not really a very complete look at what types of units are subject to rent stabilization or why.
Yeah, I think that the question is trying to get at an understanding of using 1974 as a proxy also for who receives tax benefit subsidy versus not, and what are the differences in condition between those buildings. Okay, so there were 41,270 units undergoing or awaiting renovation where no other reason was also applied, statistically similar to the 37,320 units in 2021. What is HPD doing to assist owners, where applicable, to make renovations in these units and bring them back to the market? And do we know anything else about these renovations? You mentioned that the survey methodology compares administrative data from different agencies. Do we have information about DOB permits versus these renovations, and what timelines might be?
Sure, so I can maybe start, and then I'll pass it over. Would you mind, we're just going to pull up another slide. It's in our initial findings on page 31. It's figure 11. But we'll see if we can share and pull it up on the screen while I'm giving this. So one of the important things that I think we were concerned about in 21, Councilmember Ressler has brought this up, is whether these units that were off the market were in fact sort of just not, they were just sitting empty, there was no intention of bringing them back online, they were going to be long-term, right, all of those kinds of questions. And those are very, very important questions for a variety of reasons. So for our 23 report, and here on the screen now, thank you, we dug into units that were off the market. So this is not looking at units that were available for rent, although we might be able to do that if that's of interest. So these are units that were just off the market, and we looked at whether, we asked questions and collected data on whether they were renovated, right? So this is two separate measures here. On the left, what we found is that a full 30% of all units that were off the market in 2023 were being renovated at the time we were doing those interviews. So at that one moment, we said, is this currently being renovated? And the answer was yes for 30% of those units. That's, of course, not counting ones where there was already renovation work that had been completed or anticipated in the future. Separate from that, we also asked for some specific items about upgrades that we understand are sometimes needed, are important, right? So we asked if new appliances had been installed since the prior occupant left. Again, these are all units that were not available for rent in 2023. Full 27% said that they had replaced the refrigerator. It was a new refrigerator in the unit. These are off-market units. 26% had installed a new stove. 22% had installed new kitchen cabinets, and 21% had installed new kitchen countertops. So that's and again, this is a very short period of time. This is units that are not available for rent or for sale, and it's clear to us that there is a lot of work being done to those units, presumably so that they can be brought back into active market and occupied in the near future, as we had seen with what happened in the units that were off market in 21.
I think the only thing I would add here is, again, for these, for multifamily housing, we have targeted term sheets, some of which deal with administrative or regulatory issues. So many are coming up to date with lead hazard and healthy home regulatory requirements. We do have a preservation term sheet to work with those owners. We can layer that in with efficiency, electrification, and greening improvements through our green housing participatory programs. We have both multifamily housing that's geared toward project-based voucher projects that allow us to leverage both the voucher and the capital investment that we put in to cover both in-unit major system restorations. We make that available also to buildings of different sizes and different financing histories. Some come through LIHTC and in year 15 need to reposition and need funding. We have programs that gear toward them specifically. We have and support larger multi-phase buildings as well. We do this all targeted toward those buildings, but also extending affordability, given how critical that is as a return on the public investment.
Do you have any sense of how long the units that were highlighted on that slide, how long they were offline? Does HPD keep track?
Sure. I don't have information on the length of vacancy with me today, but certainly we can come back to you with other questions, answers to other questions, and we can make sure that that's on our list.
Just one other thing I wanted to add. So a lot of our outreach happens proactively through member organizations, through information we put out there, but we also get a lot of successful contacts through our elected official sponsored events. So we do, through our landlord ambassador program, our community events, we hold property owner roundtables. We would welcome any interest by council members or elected officials to do that as well. So just putting that out there as a reminder.
Yeah, y'all coming out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, HPD in your district. Bring them to yours. So expanding on the why, so there were 13,680 units in 2023 that were held vacant for 12 months or longer, where no other reason was reported, down significantly from 26,050 in 2021. Do you have any understanding as of why at this time?
Sorry, the question is why there are fewer? Well, no. We are happy to do additional analysis and dig in with that. As I said before, for all of the different reasons that we track why a unit may be off market, we always do see fluctuation, but very important and I think very telling in our 23 survey is that almost every single category we saw very substantial drops in the number of units that were off market for any reason. But that includes this very sharp drop in units that had been held for a long time.
Got it. Thank you. And I have too many windows open, but I do have a question here about the HPD, the Housing Vacancy Survey's demographic information. So understanding that you are using 2022 American Community Survey data or 2021 American Community Survey data, is there an issue with the information on the demographics?
Sure. So let me sort of deconstruct that question a little bit here. Apologies in advance if I get too technical. Somebody just ask for more words, smaller words. So first of all, let me explain for folks in the audience here. The U.S. Census Bureau conducts many surveys. We often think of just the census, which is the decennial enumeration of the full population count, but in fact, they conduct many surveys. One of them is the American Community Survey, sometimes called ACS, which is a national sample to collect information on the population between decennials and other information, obviously, that's of critical importance for a variety of reasons. They also collect the Housing and Vacancy Survey, the New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, or NYCHVS, which is our survey. These are two totally different surveys. We do not utilize ACS at all. For any reason, right? They're just two different efforts that both are conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau. Because we are both census surveys, there are some similarities, right, which is maybe helpful to understand. We're generally sampling from the same master list of addresses, right? So we're sort of coming from the same parent, if you will. And at the end of the day, when our survey statisticians weight our data to ensure it's representative, including by demographics, we are generally using the same source of information in those weights, although they're different time points and different vintages, as they call them. And so both the NYCHVS and separately the ACS are weighted to census estimates on population the count of people, population estimates, and housing units. Those are actually two separate estimates done by different folks at the U.S. Census Bureau. So just as broader context of sort of there's many different things. The ACS is a very important source of data, but is obviously not customized to New York City and doesn't capture all of the data that we capture. It's also currently the most recent data available from the ACS is 2022, so we're actually providing more updated information than is otherwise available from any other census product. But one of the keys to what we are doing is that it is for and by the city of New York, right? So the NYC HVS goes above and beyond other surveys, including ACS, to measure things that are unique to our context and our history, and to do so over this very long time frame so that we can understand both change as well as continuity.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful to understand that there is no relationship except for the parent relationship. But then I guess my question is actually, how do you see the HVS findings comporting with the 2022 ACS findings? And in particular, ACS 2022 showing that New York City population numbers are still down from prior to the pandemic. I have 400,000 people here listed, but I'm not quite sure that's right, versus 275,000 more occupied units in the city of New York. How do you understand that relationship?
Yeah, sure. It's an excellent question. So let me, again, give a little bit broader context to help folks understand this. So first of all, when we here today and in our report have been talking about households and housing units, and we do that because those households are what lives in a housing unit, right? We are here to talk about the need for housing, supply, condition, and continued need. So our focus is households. We have not yet dug into any of the population data about individual people or the count of total people that we have, living in different types of housing or those needs. Historically, that's always something that we do as sort of a follow-up after our selected initial findings. So we're looking forward to digging in. That said, it's important to note that households is not the same as people. And it is possible for the number of households to increase while the number of people, the total people, stays the same or even goes down. If you think about household size decreasing, right, going from 3 people to 2.5 people to 2.3 people, right, and so on, and that is a trend we have seen in New York City over a very long time period, households getting smaller and smaller over time. So if it continues to get smaller, then obviously it's could be a fewer number of people spread out over more housing units and households. So that is mathematically possible. That said, we expect the U.S. Census Bureau to issue those population estimates, in fact, next week is what we've heard. So we will know very soon sort of where the overall population stands. But we feel very confident, and the experience on the ground, I think, comports with this idea that we are in a very tight housing market, and there are more households living in more types of units.
Thank you so much. Okay, so turning back to how we get more of these units online that are offline. So last year, the Unlocking Doors program was announced as a way to encourage owners of vacant units to rehab their units and return them to the rental market. Can you provide an update of this program? How many applications were submitted, have been submitted? What is the status? Have any been approved or denied? And if any approved, has any applicant completed the rehabilitation work required?
So the pilot is still ongoing. We have not seen a high number of uptake. We've only had one application at this point. This is not the only pilot that we've done in the past to look at how we can work with landlords to make improvements in apartments. We've had the Landlord Ambassador Program. We did a pilot with CBOs during the Emergency Housing Voucher Program, where we looked at making repairs to allow for easier HQS inspection approvals. So each pilot comes with its own circumstances for us to figure out and work. We knew that this is something that that would take time for the owner industry to absorb, ask questions, and we'll see toward, as we continue to go through, we'll see what the uptake is and what the program will ultimately yield in terms of instruction for this approach. But again, as the doctor had suggested, we are seeing that more of these units have come online through other mechanisms, through other ways that you repair units, but we will continue to think about different ways in addition to our preservation term sheets to bring more units online.
Got it, thank you. And just for completeness sake, saying out loud that the Unlocking Doors pilot, and please correct me, would provide a landlord with $25,000 to repair a unit if they accept a tenant that has a City FEPS voucher. So what feedback have you heard from the industry? One thing that I've heard multiple times is $25,000 is not enough of a support. Or what have you been hearing from that one applicant or others that you've heard from?
I mean, I don't have all the feedback with me at the moment. Again, we have seen there are units that are different levels of that have different levels of need. Some are very small fixes that will allow a rental assistance applicant the ability to occupy that unit. Some of the repairs are more extensive. Some of them lead to major capital improvements, which are on the more costlier side of the preservation work. So that's why that we have both tools that are more discrete for the lower end, and we have more extensive tools for full building rehabs or major capital work. And so whenever we see an owner who comes to us, once we have a better sense of what their physical needs assessments are, we drive them to the right tool.
Got it. So a la carte HPD services. Thank you, First Deputy. I have a series of questions that I suspect you won't have the answers to today, but I want to enumerate them. I'll do that next up. But one more sort of clarifying question on the HVS. So the 2023 HVS identifies a higher prevalence of most housing quality issues relative to previous HVS cycles, so a higher number of units that are facing these housing quality issues. When segmented by status, we have public housing units in the worst shape, with then rent-controlled units following and rent-stabilized units following that. So given these housing quality issues, can you talk to me about HPD's enforcement improvements? And in particular, I have been talking to the administration, HPD included, about a building in my district that I believe represents too many others, right? I had 1915 Billingsley collapse in my district, has had over 100 HPD violations, a number of Department of Building violations. And yesterday we had an announcement about 2201-2205 Davidson, which has nearly 500 HPD open violations and 90 DOB violations, 60 Department of Health violations. It is quite literally falling apart. And I know we're talking about it, but it is a building that is representative of many others. And it is an illustration of HPD's housing quality enforcement tools falling short. So can you help us understand how is HPD addressing these 10,000 buildings estimated by CSS who are in these desperate conditions of having pervasive housing maintenance code and other violations and issues?
So I think we try to attack each building with its specific problems in a number of different ways. So we have first the standard protocol of being able to respond to 311 complaints, getting inspectors to those sites and understanding if the problem is limited to the unit itself, the building as a whole. We can go further and do roof-to-cellar inspections. We use that data and we combine that with information that we have with sister agencies at DOB or other agencies where that information, if need be, taken to a next level, could be useful to working with the owner to get those things corrected. For buildings that have severe issues, Class C violations, and owners go beyond the completion date or the date to certify that the work has been completed, we do have programs like the Emergency Repair Program where we do use city dollars to do the work and then bill the owner after. We have more extensive programs like the Alternative Enforcement Program, program. We do an annual assessment at the end of January of every year, in which case buildings based on their Class B and Class C violations, the amount of violation ERP charges that we've done for a particular building, once they meet certain criteria, they are enrolled in this program, or HPD is more intensely involved in ensuring that the corrections are done. That list is made public. We set up meetings. We're actually in the period now where we're setting up meetings with tenants in those buildings to make them aware of their building's enrollment in this program and what that means and how they can help ensure that we have that structure in place. We continue to have the ability to take cases to court with our litigation division. I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers, but I know we'll be before you on Monday for the budget hearing, and we'll make sure to have more of that information available. So and then separate and apart from that, we, proactive and cross-agency work either through the, harassment task force, where it's, we're sitting with both DOB, DP, other enforcement agencies. We're working with the various district attorney offices where it makes sense. We have the tenant protection cabinet where we're doing proactive outreach to tenants so that we're getting the information about the most problematic buildings so we can understand where there's portfolio issues. There's both a reactive framework in place for HPD using tools of various degrees, and there is a proactive focus through a task force that's geared from a tenant's perspective and a tenant's lens, not only using HPD's resources, but sometimes you have construction and harassment, which is why you have the Office of the Tenant Advocate at DOB. And those are two offices that work. Our office and their office works closely together to see where we could be maximizing our resources. So again, it's both reactive and proactive.
Thank you, First Deputy. And, it's not that HPD's enforcement programs don't work, it's that they don't work for the worst cases, and that's what we've seen. So look forward to talking more about that and giving you tools that hopefully then the agency does use to take ownership back from buildings like 2201, 2205 Davidson, where that landlord has no business being an owner. How does the HVS integrate 311 and violation data? Does the housing quality, reporting that is in the HVS integrate those numbers?
It's a great question. Yes, we do integrate code enforcement data into the HVS on the back end. So as I had described before, we sort of have the heart of this is our interviews and our sampled units that are selected scientifically to represent themselves and others. And then we take other data and we sort of attach it, if you can think of it that way. And that does include code enforcement data. Full stop. Our way of measuring housing quality is, I think, really important to understand as a complement to code enforcement data sort of on their own. So you can think of each of these as doing slightly different things that together give us the best current picture of housing quality, for lack of a better term, mostly housing problems. So code enforcement data, particularly in the aggregate, right, taking, for example, our open data and analyzing that, does obviously convey where there are code violations, right, or multiple code violations by different typologies of buildings. But that doesn't represent all housing units, right? Our code enforcement data is by definition a selection of buildings and units that are going through that process. So people who have called 311, as opposed to having a problem that didn't call 311 for a variety of reasons. Or a building that was referred, right, from a community partner versus a building that didn't get flagged for whatever reason, right, by somebody to put it in front of us, et cetera. So in various ways, and I will say, it also represents where someone was able to access a unit, verify the conditions, issue a violation, right? There's a very long sequence of going through that process. Those are incredibly important things, but again, the HVS does something slightly different and complementary to that. So what we do is we ask the occupants themselves, and we do our own observations of conditions, right? And we've done that for many, many cycles in as consistent a way as we can to track change over time. but we don't verify those through our interviews. We obviously have very highly trained, focused field interviewers, but they are not building inspectors, right? You can imagine the variety of ways, right? We're also doing this at a certain period of time, usually late winter, early spring, right? So all of those are a factor of what we are measuring, but we do it in a full universe way. We reach people and they tell us, right, they report these problems who have never ever called 311, for example, right? We will pick them up. So those two things are different. We do merge in and actually look at the overlapping issues to try to get a better picture, and we're hoping that we'll be able to share some of those data in the coming months. That's a very complicated process to match all of those data together and ensure data privacy of the individuals, which is really the hardest part for us, but we are working on that.
And I'll just add, I think this speaks to the proactive piece. So we had mentioned earlier the public engagement unit and the tenant support unit, the knocking on doors, the information we get back either through the neighborhood-based work or targeted days of action, that plus the work that we do in the tenant harassment cabinet, this information allows us to think what the future should look like in terms of investment, in terms of strategies, how we form and even frame what our enforcement teams look like. And so all of this is used in one way or another, but they are separate data sets.
Thank you. And is that process that you're undertaking now, is the merging at the unit level? Okay, that explains why you can't release it. But taking you up on that point, First Deputy, tenant support units, HVS's richness of data and ability to merge this information, does the agency have a sense of how 311 complaint rates compare to something that is more thorough, like the HVS or tenant support going through an entire building?
You want to? I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll start. So thank you. I mean, I think that's the critical piece to the shift with integrating proactive approaches, right, is to try to figure out what aren't we reaching and how can we effectively reach them. So we're approaching that on the data side from a number of perspectives. The one thing that I can share that I think maybe is a good indicator, although not a robust full analysis of this, in our interview with occupants, and we haven't looked at this yet for 23, but I can speak to it from 21. One of the items that we always ask about is heating breakdowns, right? Which for us is self-reported information on lacking heat for 6 hours or more in the prior winter, right? And what we did for 21 and also for 23, although what I'm going to explain and share is from our 21 survey. We then followed up with anyone who said, yes, I didn't have heat last winter, at least once. We asked them directly, we said, did you call 311 about the problem? And only about 40% of the people who had reported to us that they had a heating breakdown said that they had called 311 about the problem. So you can imagine that that's a pretty dramatic, potentially underreporting. That's also not to say that if they had called and we had gone out, that we maybe would have actually verified that the temperature, right, or it hadn't been restored in the meantime, or that the temperature was such where it was prime for an emergency violation. I mean, there are many things that are a little different about that, but it just gives you a sense of the scale of how important complementing the reactive with proactive is.
And again, I don't have exact numbers with me, but we have seen 311 complaints that we've received continue to stay steady or go up. It's the reason why we focused on at least graduating 3 more teams of inspectors over the last years. It's the reason why, as an agency, we prioritize our work with DCAS, especially around our inspectors and construction managers, to be able to do that work. So we have more inspectors on the team as a result of following this data and seeing 311 being very important, and ERP charges and making sure that we're getting the work done either by the owner or ourselves.
Thank you. That's really striking. Only 40% calling 311 about heating issues, I think is, and we know that some communities underreport more than others. I suspect mine is one of them. Lower income communities just underreport. So that's very striking. Okay, so here's the list of questions that I suspect you won't have the answers to today. And if that is the case, just say coming soon and we can move on. Okay, some of these we asked. Are you able to tell us more, disaggregate the 2,400 plus, the units renting at over $2,400, the vacancy rate at higher levels of rent?
We are happy to do that. We have not yet. I will point out that by definition, that the reason it's 2,400 in that cut is that represents the 75th percentile of rent. So that means there's a full quarter, approximately, of units above that. The median asking rent for units that were available in 23 was $3,000. So by definition, then half of the units that were available cost more than that. So certainly there is a large number of those, not a large number, there's not a large number of vacant anything in New York City, but there should be sufficient sample where we can see if we can break that out more for you.
Great, that would be helpful, thank you. Do you have well, this is a related question. How many rent stabilized units in particular are available at below fair market rents? And this question is in connection to a bill that is being heard in Albany, sponsored by Assemblymember Burgos in the lower house, that would allow increases of FMR, rent increases of up to FMR, which many of our advocates are flagging for us in no uncertain terms. It is a very dire threat to rent stabilization.
Sure, and for that very reason, thank you for asking that question of us. So first of all, as sort of for the broader audience here, FMRs, or fair market rents, are set by HUD for the New York FMRA area, and they are used in a variety of policies, right, and income eligibility determinations, including our voucher programs, right? That is essentially the thing that determines our general payment standard metrics for voucher holders. I'm going to gloss over a lot of the technical details here. They are essentially the 40th percentile of recent movers citywide. So they're based on rents for people who recently moved into their units. Taking a step back to our HVS findings, both from 21 and 23, we know that recent movers and units that had been available recently are very high cost. And so that is reflected in New York City's FMRs. They are higher prices than what most units have rents in New York City. For example, for FY24, for a 2-bedroom in 24, the FMR is $2,752. For a 3-bedroom, it's $3,434. For a studio, it's almost $2,400. So you know from our data today and our report that that's at the upper end of the rent distribution. That's actually very valuable on the policy side because it gives our voucher holders a greater competitive edge when they're out there looking for a unit, right? That's very important that they be able to have higher payment standards, to choose what neighborhoods they live in, to be able to reach and access more affluent neighborhoods if they need to, and obviously with very few vacant units to be able to, right, be on equal footing or closer footing to those in the private market. That said, it means that if rent stabilized units were to reset in any shape or form to that, that would be a dramatic increase in rents. And not just rent stabilized units, in fact, market rentals as well. So from the 23 HVS, we can say that 86% of rent stabilized units have a rent below FMR in 2023. 86% of rent stabilized units, and 65% of market rentals. So we're talking about almost the entirety of the rental stock could, in fact, see a shift, and that there are obviously knock-on effects of that kind of approach as well. You would have higher cost vacant units because they would reset at vacancy, which means that there would be even fewer units available for lower income New Yorkers to afford. And that in turn would actually drive up FMRs even more for the next reset. And so we haven't done any kind of detailed analysis of that, but if that's of any help, we're happy to do that from our HVS data.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gomer. I hope that the agency will, if needed, as needed, and will just be very vocal about the potential impacts of a change like that for rent-stabilized units, even if it is at vacancy. I'm just going to list them out, and if there are comments that you would like to share in the interest of time, and then we'll move on to public testimony. Thank you all for your patience and participation, and also your help in preparing for this hearing. So there are questions about how many of New York City buildings are 100% rent stabilized or have the high proportion of the units within them rent stabilized, if there are any notes about their geography. Already asked that. There are questions about the homeowner vacancy rate in the city of New York. So we see we understand the renter vacancy rate is high, but what about homeowners? Are they in as much of an affordability and vacancy crisis as rental units? There are questions about a disaggregation of vacant and unavailable units that are due to more than 2 reasons, trying to understand that and what the most common combinations are, as that is quite a large chunk of vacant and unavailable. There's a question about breaking out rental arrears data in crosstabs by rent regulation status versus public housing versus market rate. I already asked about breaking out the rent-stabilized stock prior to 1974 and after 1974. There's a question about what is the actual number of low-rent apartments that are rent-stabilized and have been vacant for more than 12 months. I think you may have answered that earlier.
Yeah, that was we can't go down to 1,000, but below 1,500, that's 1,700 units in 2023.
Thank you. Is there any description that HPD can share about the kind of distress that we see in rent-stabilized housing that is vacant? I asked about rent-stabilized units, how many in particular are within the sample? And finally,
that one I can answer, I think, quickly. You said rent-stabilized units in our sample. That was
Yes.
the question?
Mm-hmm.
So as I think I said in my testimony, for 23, we increased our overall sample back to pre-pandemic levels. We now have a sample of about 15,000 housing units. In 21, we were down to 12,000, right, to protect health and safety of the folks out there doing our survey and responding to our survey. So rent stabilization is about a little over 25% of the total housing supply. In 21, so when we had our smaller sample, we had a 25% sample of rent-stabilized units, so about 3,000. We then, between 21 and 23, our entire increase of 3,000 units was all rent-stabilized units, right? So that we would have an oversample, pretty dramatic oversample. So that's means that 40% of the sample drawn for the 23 survey is rent-stabilized.
Thank
And
you.
again, those are weighted, specifically selected to represent every rent-stabilized unit and weighted to reflect that in our data.
Thank you. And finally, there's a question about whether HPD can publish a table of household income by the rental amount, how much they are paying for rent, disaggregating by rent stabilization status or not. And those are my questions. All of my colleagues are here and they're very thrilled. No, we talk on and offline about these hearings, and I've asked many questions that they have asked me to ask. So with that, I want to thank you so much for the presentation today, for answering our questions. We will discuss among colleagues the information presented to us in order to determine that vacancy rate in the city of New York, and we'll be voting on the resolution and introduction here today. And I will see many of you next week for our weekly installment of HPD hearings. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We will now be turning to testimony from the public. Please listen for your name to be called, whether you are here in person or appearing on Zoom. If you're testifying on Zoom when it is your turn to testify, you will be prompted to unmute. Please accept this prompt and begin your testimony. In the interest of time, your testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per person. For our first in-person panel, we will be starting with Lucy Block, Sarah Heinbach, Adam Edwards Rivera, Brendan Cheney, and Oksana Mironova. You can come up to the table when you're ready. Thank you. Okay, great. You can begin when we're ready. Oksana, we can start with you.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you for holding this hearing. My name is Oksana Mironova, and I'm a senior policy analyst at the Community Service Society of New York. The 2023 HVS shows that New York City's net rental vacancy rate is 1.41%, one of the lowest on record. It is a steep fall from the 2021 rate, which was 4.54%, one of the highest on record. Such as an extreme swing denotes extreme times when the need for a regulatory framework that balances the scales between tenants and landlords is most needed. When vacancy rates are low, individual tenant households lack market power. This is the legal justification for rent control and rent stabilization. When there is an extreme imbalance in market power between landlords and tenants, it is incumbent on the state to step in and prevent the most severe forms of exploitation. Rent stabilization and rent control keep landlords from exploiting this housing crisis and gives tenants the legal backing to push back against deferred maintenance and neglect with the confidence that their lease will be renewed at the rate allowed by law. I wanted to take a second to make a note on the HSTPA and some of the questions that Councilmember Ressler had. He's not here, but that's okay. So this is the second HVS since the HSTPA passed in 2019. Before the HSTPA, when the tenant moved out, rent stabilized apartments were eligible for 20% as a right increase and unchecked and often inflated increases resulting from individual apartment improvements. Apartments that reached a legal rent of $28.16 were eligible for decontrol. Unscrupulous landlords developed business practices contingent on these loopholes, all geared towards increasing the net operating income of their stabilized properties, which allowed them to over-leverage their buildings with more and more debt. Conditions for tenants got so bad that the city was forced to sharpen its definition of tenant harassment. Lenders were complicit in these practices. As ANHD's Equitable Reinvestment Committee has shown, some multifamily lenders' core business practices relied on making multifamily loans to bad-acting landlords. For example, year after year, building after building, Signature Bank, which collapsed just a couple of months ago, consistently made multifamily loans that were speculative and underwritten to practices of displacement, harassment, or building neglect. If previous rounds of sky-high valuations of rent-stabilized buildings were based on dreams of ever-rising rents and net operating income, today's are based on realistic assessments of what tenants pay each month according to the law. At the same time, the reality is that there are financially distressed rent-stabilized properties on the market. As this committee considers the implications of the 2023 HVS, and its relationship to the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969, we hope it also engages with the opportunity to rescue over-leveraged properties and turn them into permanently affordable housing.
Thank you. Can I just ask you to expound upon what you believe the council can do to help rescue the over-leveraged properties?
Thank you for that question. The city could intervene by funding Neighborhood Pillars, a program created by the de Blasio administration in the long shadow of the 2008 foreclosure crisis, which allows the city to work with preservation purchasers. City Council should also pass COPA, the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, to establish a legal framework for the transfer of buildings from distressed private ownership to public tenant or community-controlled social housing.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
I think it's off.
Good afternoon. I am Adam Edwards Rivera, a law graduate with the Housing Rights Unit at the Queens Legal Services Program of Legal Services NYC. I thank the committee for the opportunity to testify today about rent stabilization as it relates to addressing the ongoing housing emergency in New York City. Annually, LSNYC provides legal assistance to thousands of low-income New Yorkers facing eviction and seeking to enforce NYC housing standards in their homes. As has been said already today, on February 8, 2024, the New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey published their semi-annual report, which indicated the rental vacancy rate in the city had reached its lowest point since 1968. According to the report, only 1.4% of rentable units in New York City were vacant between January and June of last year. This points to a dire housing crisis in New York City, which is perhaps as bad as it's been since the rent stabilization laws of 1969 came into effect. To share a case of mine, I had a client who lived in a rent-stabilized apartment and faced eviction based on her apparent non-payment of rent. My client had been withholding her rent because she was unsure if she should be paying because of two separate eviction proceedings against her. She came to me worried that she would be unable to stay in her home, sure that her landlord would refuse to offer her a renewal. However, by virtue of the rent stabilization law, her lease was renewed. Our representation resulted in our client's multiple eviction proceedings being discontinued, the landlord receiving rent, and our client returning to their apartment with a lease. If our client had instead been in a market rate apartment, it is likely that the end result of the case would have been an elderly disabled woman facing a gut-wrenching upheaval of her life into the impossible NYC housing market. Many of our clients are low-income families living in month-to-month tenancies. In many of these cases, our clients are shocked to discover that their diligent monthly payments are rendered meaningless with a single 90-day notice, which announces the termination of what are sometimes decades of stable family life in a single unit. The rent stabilization law protects tenants in almost 1 million rentals in New York City, or about half the city's rental housing stock. 1/5 of those apartments house families living below the poverty line. In recent years, approximately 175,000 households in rent-stabilized housing were unable to afford even a $25 increase in their monthly rent. Given the extreme income vulnerability of many rent-stabilized tenants, it stands to reason that if their rent stability protections were to lapse, the city would be faced with an unprecedented deluge of evictions, homelessness, and another heavy burden added to a city already in a housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Hainback, and I am also an attorney with Legal Services NYC's Housing Unit. I appreciate the opportunity to testify on rent stabilization as it relates to the ongoing housing emergency in New York City. Where I work in Queens, countless clients live in unregulated housing. For these tenants, nothing stops their landlords from deciding that they don't want to offer a renewal lease. Similarly, landlords of unregulated units are entitled to increase the rent by hundreds or thousands of dollars. As lawyers, we are limited in what we can do to advocate for unregulated tenants. I cannot count the number of times I've said to a client, unfortunately, because your apartment is unregulated, your landlord can decide not to renew your lease. It is frustrating to have to explain again and again that while we may be able to negotiate for more time to move or to lower the amount of arrears claimed, ultimately the tenant has no long-term right to remain in unregulated housing. I've also seen, on the flip side, the positive impact that rent stabilization can have on my clients' lives. For example, I worked with a mourning widow whose name was never on the lease to gather documents that proved her relationship to her deceased husband and their co-residency so that we could obtain a renewal lease in her name for the same amount of rent. In an unregulated apartment, whether a spouse is allowed to stay after the death of their partner would be up to the landlord. and even if a landlord were willing to allow the tenant to stay, they would likely use the occasion to draw up a new lease with an increased rent. In this widow's case, however, she and her 3 children were entitled to remain in their long-term home, allowing some stability in the midst of mourning their husband and father. Tenants of rent-stabilized units also have more avenues to push for repairs. Only regulated tenants can report conditions to DHCR, which sends inspectors to confirm a tenant's complaint and can impose a rent freeze, which can only be lifted after the landlord completes repairs, incentivizing owners to maintain their properties. Another benefit that rent-regulated tenants enjoy is the ability to enroll in Department of Finance programs that freeze the rents of some of the most vulnerable rent-regulated tenants, those who are elderly or disabled and have an annual income of less than $50,000. The program works by giving property owners a tax benefit equaling the difference between the frozen rent amount and the increase that would otherwise be allowable. So landlords continue to raise the rent, but tenants' rent burdens remain the same. This can be life-changing for tenants on a fixed income who cannot afford even a modest rent increase when the public benefits they live off of stay the same. These benefits, however, are only available to regulated tenants. Countless New Yorkers rely on rent regulations protections every day. New York City needs not only to preserve the existing rent-regulated housing stock, but also to create an infusion of new, affordable, and rent-regulated housing. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lucy Block, and I'm a Senior Research and Data Associate at ANHD, the Association for Neighborhood and Housing Development. So I'm going to skip over what was covered in detail earlier, which is that the vacancy is terrible overall, but is also really concentrated at the high end of the market, and on the low, not just the low end, but the middle of the market, we have just a few thousand units. So what we did, which is in our testimony, is we calculated based on the HVS how many units would be needed at each rent range in order to get that rent range to 5%, to see, kind of be able to compare that among the different ranges. What we found is that you would need 7.5 times as many units renting for below $2,400 per month versus above $2,400 per month. So we're really concerned about, as you are, the affordability of new units that are coming online, units that are called affordable but are renting for well above $2,400, and certainly large influxes of market rate units that are at $3,000, such as HPD pointed to earlier. The recent comptroller report said that the median new unit coming on the market was $3,500 or more for most of last year. So new units coming online are absolutely not meeting the real affordability and where we need it. And we want to make sure that our policies are all really concentrated on meeting the need. So we also looked at the rent-burdened population. We used our AMI cheat sheet to look at what % of the rent-burdened population, yes, can afford different rents. And so you can also, there's a chart in our testimony with the mismatch between the availability of units at each of the HVS rent ranges and what that translates to in terms of the rent-burdened population. So you can see that 64% of available vacant units are renting at over $2,400, and that's only 12% of the rent-burdened population, versus on the low end, 7% of available units are less than $1,100, which is 36% of the rent-burdened population. And we'd be happy to, and we plan to break this down in further detail in coming months. So some of the solutions, we really appreciate everything you were bringing up earlier. We also think that vouchers are incredibly important to meet some of those lowest income needs. And thank you for asking HPD about that, about the income levels and the rents of what their existing programs provide. Thank you to the council for working on expanding vouchers and their flexibility. We think we need to continue to do that, keep investing and making sure that those vouchers can be effective, stop source of income discrimination, obviously extend the rent stabilization laws. I think that's very clear. We also want to make sure that we are defending and fully funding right to counsel, and that all of our development and preservation of affordable housing is really focused at that level below $2,400. I'd be happy to elaborate more.
Thank you. Are there other policies that you believe we should pursue?
Yeah, so just to be a little more specific, I think right to counsel at the city level is an important focus to keep tenants in their existing homes, make sure that they can access all of the available options to stay in their homes, and that should be fully funded. The ask this year is for $351 million to make sure that right to counsel is fully functional because it's incredibly successful. In addition to that, we support the Community Land Act and COPA, and just in general, making sure that all of our public resources, our capital dollars, public land are all being very hyper-targeted and focused to where the need is. So, you know, we should really be focusing on below 2,400, but as you know, we need to be getting to extremely low levels of affordability that even 30% AMI doesn't necessarily get to. And there's a variety of ways to do that, and we should be pursuing all of them. Some of them are updating our term sheets, relying more on income averaging, project level operating subsidy, and vouchers. There are a lot of means, and they're all really important.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Cheney with the New York Housing Conference. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. So I've submitted our full testimony, but in the interest of time, I'll summarize the main points. The latest New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey clearly shows that the city continues to face a housing emergency and growing affordability crisis that warrants the continuation of rent stabilization laws. And the data this time is particularly alarming. And I've already gone over a lot of this, but 1.4% vacancy rate, the lowest since 1968, and for units renting for less than $1,100, it was just 0.39%. Virtually all renter households earning under $25,000 are rent burdened, and 86% of them pay more than half of their income on housing. And renter households earning less than $70,000 had a median rent-to-income ratio of 54%. This means that the typical renter in New York City was paying more than half of their income on housing. And despite this alarming crisis, we're still not building enough housing. While there was a net increase of about 61,000 units since 2001, the city added 275,000 new households. So we're adding more households than we're adding housing. When supply doesn't meet the demand, renters are forced to compete for the same limited number of apartments. This drives up costs and creates an even greater power imbalance between renter and landlord. The data also showed a significant increase in the median income of renters from $50,000 in 2021 to $70,000 in 2023. This appears to be driven by big changes in the city's population. Households earning $100,000 or more per year increased by 11%, while the number of households in the city at the lower incomes decreased. So the scale of the housing affordability crisis is staggering. We must enact multiple changes at different levels of government if we are truly to address the crisis. We must all fight for more funding for affordable housing construction and preservation and funding for rental assistance. At the state level, this means supporting the proposed Housing Access Voucher Program. At the city level, we must also expand city FHEPS. Expand eligibility for city FHEPS especially. We are supportive of the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity to build a little more housing in every neighborhood, and we look forward to talking with the City Council about that. A new as-of-right rental tax abatement is also necessary to incentivize rental housing production with an affordable housing requirement. Without a rental tax incentive, rental housing production is likely to plummet. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Anyone who has this off the top of their on the top of their heads, I don't know what the state. Yeah, you know what I mean. Brendan, you mentioned that households earning $100,000 or more increased by 11%. Do we know what the corresponding decrease was for lower income households at any threshold?
I don't have it offhand, but I remember that was one of the charts that came up. So I know that remember seeing there's a decrease among those two lower income ranges. And there was about not much of a change in the third, and then a higher increase on the highest end of incomes. Then there was a decrease, but there was a decrease lower than 25,000 and between 25,000 and 50,000.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I meant to ask that earlier. And I also meant to ask earlier, any thoughts on the number of migrants that the City of New York has welcomed vis-a-vis the 2023 HVS findings?
That's a good question. Because the HVS counts units as opposed to people, I think that it would be difficult to make any kind of, to say anything about that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's ways to track immigration and migration status basically within the HVS, but I don't think that you'd be able to take the new, figure out who are the newest asylum seekers versus immigrants who have come before that.
Thank you so much. And I, in particular, want to thank all of you who were able to join in the pre-hearing discussions to help shape this hearing. So Legal Aid Society, New York Housing Conference, the Community Housing Improvement Program, CHIP, Tenants and Neighbors, Citizens Budget Commission, Community Service Society, NHD, and Regional Plan Association. Thank you for participating in that discussion and helping to shape this hearing. Thank you.
Our next panel will be a Zoom panel, so when you are prompted to unmute, please accept that prompt. We will start with Robert Desir and then Mike McKee.
Good afternoon. The Legal Aid Society welcomes a chance to testify before this committee about the continuing housing emergency and the importance of extending the rent laws. The declining number of vacant units available for rent and the fact that housing expansion has not kept pace with population growth and the ongoing public housing crisis have all contributed to the scarcity of available affordable housing. The selected HVS findings show an unprecedented vacancy rate for New York City renters of 1.41%, a rate that hasn't been seen since the 60s, a rate that's well under the 5% threshold for an emergency, and also in stark contrast to the rate that we saw in 2021. The picture is even more dire for very low rent apartments for whom the vacancy rate is 0.39%. Sadly, this decline extends across all of the housing stock that middle and low income households reside in. There are 30% less Mitchell-Lama and project-based Section 8 units than there were in 1990. There are over 200,000 families on the waiting list for NYCHA public housing and 17,000 on the waiting list for Section 8 in New York City. This is all also in the face of declining affordability, where the median renter income is $70,000, and half of New York City renter households, those earning under $70,000, are severely rent burdened, paying over half of their income in rent. Among households earning less than $25,000 a year, who don't live in public housing or don't have a voucher, 86% of those are severely rent burdened. According to HVS, only 13% of the 32,000 apartments available for rent were affordable to New Yorkers earning less than $50,000 a year. Household would have to earn between $100,000 and $150,000 to afford one of these vacant apartments. Among households earning, so when families have stable housing, it leads to better outcomes in health, education, and employment. Housing stability vastly increases chances of avoiding issues such as risk of depression and chronic illnesses like diabetes, low weight, and preterm infants. For children, frequent moves before a child is 7 years old leads to greater thought-related and attention-related problems. These problems can reduce educational achievement. Thus, the emergency continues to exist, and these essential laws must be extended. The conditions that led to the creations of the laws, such as the high demand, low availability, and high rents, continue to exist. If the city doesn't act, programs that have been created to protect elderly residents and residents with disabilities, like Scree and Dree, will become meaningless, and these New Yorkers with disabilities and that are elderly will find themselves threatened with eviction and homelessness. Thanks for the opportunity to testify before the committee. We hope that New York City will extend the rent laws and protect the housing of over 1 million families.
Thank you so much, Robert.
Next, we'll hear from Mike McKee, followed by Genesis Aquino.
What time would you guys think we get this done, overnight? Really? You may begin.
Mike McKee, if there's any testimony you'd like to share, please start now. Okay, hearing nothing, we will move on to Genesis Aquino.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chairwoman Sanchez, and to the Housing and Buildings Committee members for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Genesis Aquino. I'm the Executive Director of New York State Tenants and Neighbors Information Service and New York State Tenants and Neighbors Coalition, two affiliate organizations with the common mission to build a powerful and unified statewide organization that empowers and educates tenants, preserve affordable housing, livable neighborhoods, and diverse communities, and strengthen tenants' protections. Tenants and Neighbors organizes in rent-regulated, Mishawama, and project-based Section 8 development citywide. In the buildings where we organize, the story is the same. Low and moderate income tenants in New York City are regularly experiencing pressures of displacement. Rents are climbing, and many communities are experiencing the threats of being priced out of their homes. A major cause of the massive affordability and housing crisis is the power of the real estate industry to shape pro-landlord policies and laws. So if the purpose of this hearing is to ask if we have an emergency, the answer is yes. It is obvious New York City is in the worst affordability crisis the city has ever seen. Not only have we lost hundreds of affordable housing, rent stabilized units, tenants are also living, the tenants currently living in rent stabilized apartment are increasingly unable to afford their rent. Rent stabilization is the largest source of affordable housing for low and moderate income tenants, and it's largely concentrated in historic communities of color that are now rapidly gentrifying. But unfortunately, we have lost over 600,000 apartments of affordable housing to low-income renters over the last 30 years. There are more than 1 million units of rent-stabilized housing and 2.5 million tenants in rent-regulated housing. Over 400,000 low-income families live in rent-regulated housing. And most of them are concentrated in Upper Manhattan, the West Bronx, Western Queens, and Central Brooklyn. This is a pattern partly, this pattern, is partly the result of vacancy destabilization, especially before 2019, and co-op conversions. The practice of speculative targeting of affordable housing has decimated affordable housing in our communities.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Yes. Give me 1 second. Yeah, just briefly summarizing the testimony, but in 60% of the apartments that in 60% of the non-regulated 60% of the tenants who live in non-regulated housing, usually they have to relocate, right? When we start organizing, when the tenants start enforcing their rights to livable conditions, right? They usually get displaced and they relocate outside of their own communities, right? In comparison to the tenants who we organize that live in rent-stabilized buildings, 90% of them get to stay in their communities, and if they do organize, when we do build tenant associations, they improve their housing conditions. So we just want to strongly urge the City Council to determine that a public emergency is requiring rent control in New York City, and to continue with the Rent Stabilization Law of 1975. We also want to echo some of the policies that you should support, as mentioned by some of our colleagues here. We also support, and we would love the City Council to pass the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act Also to support the Neighborhood Pillar program, the Right to Counsel, and also expand the FEPS program for low-income people. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much.
Next, Adam Roberts.
Thank you for holding this hearing today. I am Adam Roberts, Policy Director for the Community Housing Improvement Program, also known as CHIP. We represent New York's housing providers, including apartment building owners and managers. Our members operate New York's rent-stabilized housing, which makes up nearly 1 million units of affordable housing. Most types of affordable housing in New York are facing a financial crisis, including NYCHA, supportive housing, and pre-1974 rent-stabilized housing. These aging buildings are expensive to maintain and upgrade. Considering the $80 billion needed to renovate NYCHA's 178,000 units of housing, the cost must be far higher for the 1 million units of rent-stabilized housing. Rent-stabilized housing is in even more dire circumstances because the cost of renovations cannot be recouped. Rental income barely covers daily operating costs. This prevents banks, nonprofits, and government agencies from lending for renovations, while simultaneously reducing building value. And without lending, it is impossible to pay contractors, tradespeople, architects, and engineers for renovating vacant units. They won't work for free. When long-term tenants move out, these units require lead abatement, asbestos remediation, subfloor replacement, electrical rewiring, and bathroom and kitchen renovations, which totals around $100,000 for just a one-bedroom unit. Furthermore, those banks who did previously lend to rent-stabilized housing are themselves facing collapse because of plummeting building values. Since building values are so low, banks cannot recoup losses through foreclosure. Signature Bank collapsed last year, and New York Community Bank, now the largest lender to rent-stabilized housing, is facing imminent collapse. Without funding for renovations, units are being left vacant after long-term occupancies. The Independent Budget Office found over 42,000 vacant units in 2022, an increase of 18% from pre-COVID. Over 13,000 units were vacant for multiple years, a 65% increase from pre-COVID. Furthermore, we received numbers from the Department of Finance showing nearly 9,000 units were vacant in both 2021 and 2022. Meanwhile, the Census Bureau found over 26,000 units vacant but not available in the 2023 HVS. It is important to note that both the IBO and DOF numbers, respectively, come from rent registrations and RPIEs. These are filings rent-stabilized buildings submit, not survey samples like the HVS. This makes those filing numbers hard to refute. It is an important consideration for the Council in evaluating HPD's claim that the HVS shows no vacancy issue. While renewing the city's rental emergency and reviewing the results of the HVS, we ask that the Council find a solution to the financial crisis plaguing rent-stabilized housing. Waiting to act means more foreclosures, more vacancies, and the need for a government bailout, which would divert tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars from necessary social services. We want to be your partner in ensuring this crisis is solved now. Again, thank you for holding this hearing today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your contributions prior to the hearing as well. One follow-up question for you, Adam. In hearing you discuss the IBO numbers versus Department of Finance versus the housing vacancy survey, it appears that the HVS is a much more detailed survey. It asks many more questions and strives to be a representative sample, which we have very good reasons to trust. We trust the census. Generally speaking, do you have, or does CHIP have, disagreement with the disaggregation of units that are offline as described by HVS?
We do, and this isn't to criticize the HVS in particular, but it is just a survey. Either looking at the numbers from the IBO or DOF, as I said, those are filings that owners submit to agencies. The rent registrations, which the IBO looked at, go to HCR, and the RPIEs are the filings that owners with 11 units or more in a building submit to DOF. And those are essentially irrefutable. Are these agencies just making up the numbers? That they can't be. We would like to understand more about why the HVS diverges so significantly from what these other filings are seeing, and also from what the Comptroller's Office is seeing in the tax delinquencies, which again is a sign that these buildings are no longer making enough value to even pay their taxes.
Thank you. We'll be following up with HPD.
John Crotty or C.A. Goldwell.
You may begin.
Okay. With no one else here, this concludes public testimony. If we have inadvertently forgotten to call on someone to testify, please raise your hand using the Zoom raise hand function. We'll try to hear from you now. Okay. Thank you very much.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all to the members of the public, those tuning in, the media, and all who have contributed to this discussion today regarding the latest findings of the New York City Housing Vacancy Survey. We heard today testimony that shows that that New York City's intersecting crises of rising eviction, record homelessness, and housing unaffordability are only worsening. The most recent survey housing vacancy survey highlights, as reported by HPD, a vacancy rate of 1.4%, the lowest vacancy rate on record since 1960. One that shows, the survey also shows that nearly 90% of low-income New Yorkers, those earning $25,000 a year, or as HPD likes to report, under 20% of area median income, over 90% of those individuals and families are housing cost burdened and severely housing cost burdened. As a result, the council will be evaluating the findings of the HVS in order to determine whether there continues to be a housing emergency in the city of New York that warrants rent stabilization. But we also recognize, and I also recognize, that the response to the housing crisis needs to be three-pronged. It needs to include conversation and discussion to further housing supply. And importantly, when we're spending taxpayer dollars, it needs to get at the need, which is for those New Yorkers that are earning under $25,000 a year and under 20% of AMI. We need to continue to look at ways to protect tenants. Rent stabilization and rent regulation is an important component of that, and we will be evaluating its continuance. And finally, we need to ensure that New Yorkers have the ability to stay and afford our city. And that is the conversation around income supports, vouchers, city FEPS housing vouchers, as well as Section 8, and pushing our federal and state counterparts to do more for those New Yorkers that need our support the most. Thank you all so much. And with that, this hearing is concluded.